Hello everyone. So welcome to session 25 of IS Baba's rapid revision series of 500 high probable topics for prelims 2020. I'm Preetham Reddy and I'll be dealing with 20 important topics in this session which is very crucial for prelims examination this year. So our first important topic is Arogya Pacha or miracle plant. In this session I'll be dealing with some important endangered species which have been in news. So first is Arogya Pacha or miracle plant. So this was in news because recently scientists decoded genome of this miracle plant. So this Arogya Pacha, it is endemic to the Agastya Hills which is in Kerala. And this particular miracle plant, it is known for its medicinal properties. And this Arogya Pacha, it is known for its traditional use by the Kani tribal community. So you have to remember this community, that is Kani tribal community of Kerala. So studies have shown and it is proven that this particular Arogya Pacha has antioxidant, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, anti-tumor and anti-diabetic and other medicinal properties. So this Kanis who are the tribal people who are living in Western Ghats area of Kerala, they use this particular forest plant as a key ingredient in a herbal remedy called Jeevani. So you have to remember Jeevani, which is a herbal product of this Kani tribal community. So next important topic is Jatropha curcus. So this particular species was in news somewhere between 2018 or early 2019 because Indian Air Force for the first time flew a jet or some aircraft on a biofuel that was blended with this Jatropha oil and aviation turbine fuel. And you have to remember this biojet fuel technology which was driving the Indian Air Force. It was first developed by the Indian Institute of Petroleum which is under the CSIR, that is Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. So let's see about Jatropha curcus. So it's a plant of Latin American origin. And it is now widespread throughout arid and semi-arid tropical regions of the world. Second thing you have to remember, arid and semi-arid tropical regions of the world. And there are some unique characteristics of this Jatropha. So it is a drought resistant plant and it can live up to 50 years and they grow on marginal soils. And this Jatropha, it is close relative to the castor plant and its oil has the same medicinal properties just like the castor oil. And Jatropha seeds, they contain about 35% of non-edible oil. And the major utility of this Jatropha, traditionally these seeds were harvested by the women and they use for medical treatments and local soap production. And if carefully planted, this Jatropha hedges, they not only protect the gardens from hungry livestock but also reduce damage and erosion from wind and water. And this Jatropha, it can be used as an insecticide and fungicide as well as livestock feed. So Jatropha seed cake make an excellent organic fertilizer with a high nitrogen content. So next important species is Carissa copley. So it is a new plant species which was found in Assam. So this Carissa copley is a wilder variety of the more familiar Carissa corundus. So this particular Carissa corundus, they were used by the Britishers. Okay, so among several thorny plants, the Britishers used this particular Carissa corundus as a hedge, apparently to enforce taxes and to stop the smuggling of the salt. And this Carissa corundus, they are also used as a traditional herbal medicine for a number of ailments such as diarrhea, anemia, constipation, indigestion, skin infections and urinary disorders. So next we'll know about Carissa copley, which is a new plant species which is found in Assam and it is distributed sparsely along the Copley river bed. So this Copley river is an interstate river that flows through the states of Meghalaya and Assam. So you have to remember Meghalaya and Assam. And this Copley river is the largest south bank tributary of the Brahmaputra in Assam. And this plant is threatened by a hydroelectric project on the river and also due to the water which is turned acidic because of the coal mining in the Meghalaya upstream. So next important species is bladderworts or Utricularia camarudini. So Camarudin is the scientist name who discovered this new species and Utricularia is a family of carnivorous plants. So this bladderwort is a new species of carnivorous plant which was discovered in Kerala. And next important topic is biodiversity rich Mysterica swamp. So this Mysterica swamp, they are a type of tropical freshwater swamp forest. And these swamps act as a great carbon sinks and thus control local climate And this Mysterica swamps, they derive its name by Mysterica trees. So let's know about Mysterica trees. So they are the most primitive of the flowering plants on the earth. And these Mysterica trees, they are evergreen, water tolerant trees, and they have dense tilt roots, helping them stay erect in the thick, black, wet alluvial soil. And studies have shown that these swamps, which would have occupied large swaths of the thickly wooded Western Ghats in the past, and now they have restricted to less than 200 hectares in the country. And Kerala is holding a major share of this particular habitat. So this Mysterica swamps and Mysterica trees, they are endemic to the Western Ghats. So next important topic is important forests which are in the news, like Salix swamp forest, Gondwana rainforest, kelp forest, and Miyawaki forest. So Salix swamp forest, already we had discussed in earlier session, it is found in northeastern India. So you have to remember it is found in northeastern India, especially in Dibru-Saikhowa National Park. So while discussing about Dibru-Saikhowa National Park, I said that it is the largest Salix swamp forest because Salix trees are found in this particular forest. So remember, Salix swamp forests, they are found in northeastern India with a tropical monsoon climate, with a hot and wet summer and cool and usually dry winter. So next important forest is Gondwana rainforest of Australia. So this particular forest was in news because of the forest fires. So this Gondwana rainforest, they were formerly known as the Central Eastern Rainforest Reserves. And regarding Gondwana rainforest of Australia, you have to remember two important things. One, they are the most extensive area of subtropical rainforest in the world. And two, they are the World Heritage rainforests. So next important forest is kelp forest. So this kelp forest, they are nothing but a lush underwater Arctic forest of large brown seaweeds. So you have to remember two things. One is they are large brown seaweeds and they are underwater forests in Arctic region. Next, Miyawaki forest. So this Miyawaki is a method of afforestation which was developed by the Japanese botanist Akira Miyawaki to build dense forests. So this Miyawaki forest technique has been tried in big cities including Bengaluru, Hyderabad and Chennai, and also other places in the country. And right now this Miyawaki forest in news because they are to come up in the Kerala. So next important topic is Brazzaville Declaration and Global Peatland Initiative. So this Brazzaville Declaration is very important this year. You have to remember that it deals with the largest tropical peatlands. So Brazzaville Declaration, it was signed to promote better management and conservation of world's largest tropical peatlands. And it was signed between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Indonesia. So three countries you have to remember: Democratic Republic of Congo and Indonesia. So they jointly signed this Brazzaville Declaration which promotes better management and conservation of this globally important carbon store. So next we'll know about Global Peatland Initiative. So it is an effort by leading experts and institutions to save these peatlands. And peatlands are world's largest terrestrial organic carbon stock. So they want to prevent these peatlands from being emitted into the atmosphere. So it is a multi-partner UNEP initiative and it was launched at the Global Landscape Forum in Marrakesh in 2016. And next you should know about peat and peatland ecosystem. See, peat is an accumulation of partially decayed vegetation or organic matter that is unique to natural areas called peatlands or bogs or muskegs. So peatlands are a type of wetlands that occur in almost every country on the earth, and it currently covers around 3% of the global land surface. So the term peatland, it refers to the peat soil and the wetland habitat growing on its surface. So the peatland ecosystem is the most efficient carbon sink on the planet because peatland plants, they capture CO2 naturally which are released from the peat. So it maintains the equilibrium. So in natural peatlands, the annual rate of biomass production is greater than the rate of decomposition. You have to remember it. So next important topic is UNESCO Global Geopark Network status. See, it was provided in news that Lonar Lake in Maharashtra, St. Mary's Island and Malpe Beach which is in coastal Karnataka, they are the Geological Survey of India's candidates for this UNESCO Global Geopark Network status. So let's know about UNESCO Global Geoparks. So this UNESCO Global Geoparks are single unified geographical areas where sites and landscapes of international geological significance, they are managed with a holistic concept of protection, education and sustainable development. So next important point, as per 2019, there were 140 UNESCO Global Geoparks in 38 countries. And now as per this year's addition, the number of sites in the global UNESCO Geopark network is brought to 161 and from 44 countries. And you have to remember, as of now, there is no geopark in India, even after 2020's addition. So this geopark tag is akin to that of a World Heritage Site for historical monuments that can bring India's famed geological feature to the global stage. So there are some set of criteria in order to get this particular UNESCO Global Geopark Network status. So try to read about it from its website. Usually an aspiring global geopark must have a dedicated website, a corporate identity, comprehensive management plan, protection plans, finance and also partnerships for it to be accepted. So let's know about Global Geoparks Network. So it is a UNESCO assisted network which was established in 1988 and this was managed under the Ecological and Earth Science Division. And regarding Lonar Lake, we have already completed Lonar Lake. So we have to know about St. Mary's Island and Malpe Beach. So do it as a homework. So read and revise about these two places which is important. So next important topic is Essential Commodities Act. See, recently government put masks and sanitizers under this Essential Commodities Act. So we will see what is this Essential Commodities Act. It was enacted by Parliament in 1955 and it provides for the regulation and control of production, distribution of pricing of commodities which are declared as essential. The major aim of this Essential Commodities Act is to maintain and increase supplies, secure equitable distribution, availability of these commodities at fair prices and to prevent hoarding and also to ensure timely delivery so that the normal life does not get affected. So this list can include foodstuff, drugs, fuel, etc. So the act gives powers to the central government to add or remove a commodity into the schedule or the list. And once a notification is issued, anybody trading or dealing in a commodity, be it wholesalers, retailers or even importers, they are prevented from stockpiling it beyond a certain quantity. And states are the implementing agencies to this Essential Commodities Act. And one more important point what you have to remember is there is no specific definition of this essential commodities. So next important topic is Market Intervention Scheme. So it is a price support mechanism which is implemented on the request of state governments, especially for procurement of perishable and horticultural commodities in the event of a fall in market prices. So you have to remember it is during the fall in market prices. So the scheme is implemented when there is at least 10% increase in production or 10% decrease in the ruling rates over the previous normal year. So the major objective of this market intervention scheme is to protect the growers of this horticulture or agricultural commodities from making distressed sale in the event of bumper crop during the peak arrival period when the prices fall to the very low level. Thus, it provides remunerative prices to the farmers in case of glut in production and fall in prices. And this market intervention scheme, it works in similar fashion to the minimum support price based procurement mechanism for food grains. But you have to remember this MIS is just a ad hoc arrangement. So it is a ad hoc mechanism, that is, it is temporary, whereas MSP is a kind of permanent mechanism. And this MIS, it is implemented by Department of Agriculture and Cooperation. So next important point what you have to remember is the proposal of market intervention scheme is approved on the specific request of state or union territory if the state or UT government is ready to bear 50% loss incurred on its implementation, whereas it is 25% in the case of northeastern states. And next you have to remember, under this MIS guidelines, a predetermined quantity at a fixed market intervention price is procured by central agency NAFED and also any other agencies which is designated by the state government for a fixed period or till the prices are stabilized. So this MIS has been implemented in case of commodities like apples, malta, garlic, orange, grapes, mushroom, clove, black pepper, etc. And under the scheme, the area of operation is restricted to concerned state only. So next important topic is NAFED, that is National Agricultural Cooperative Marketing Federation of India Limited. So it is an apex organization of marketing cooperatives for agricultural produce in India under Ministry of Agriculture. So it was founded on the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi on 2nd October 1958 in order to promote the trade of agricultural produce and forest resources across the nation. So it is registered under the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act. And this NAFED is now one of the largest procurement as well as marketing agency. So you have to remember it is both a procurement agency and also marketing agency for agricultural products in India. And the headquarters of this NAFED, it is in New Delhi, and this particular NAFED is the nodal agency to implement price stabilization measures under Operation Greens. And next important point what you should know is NAFED along with FCI and with proactive role of state governments physically procure oilseeds, pulses and copra under the price support scheme. So next important topic is PM ASHA, that is Pradhan Mantri Annadata Sanrakshan Abhiyan. So this PM ASHA is an umbrella scheme aimed at ensuring remunerative prices to the farmers for their produce. So this PM ASHA, it ensures that farmers growing oilseeds, pulses, copra actually get the minimum support price they are promised for their crops every year. So three important things: oilseeds, pulses and copra. Next you should know three main components of PM ASHA. So this umbrella scheme, it includes the mechanism of ensuring remunerative prices to the farmers, and it is comprised of price support scheme, price deficiency payment scheme and pilot of private procurement and stocklist scheme. So next we will be dealing with all the three important components. So first one is price support scheme. So in this price support scheme, physical procurement of pulses, oilseeds and copra will be done by the central nodal agency with proactive role of state governments. That is, in addition with NAFED, FCI will also take up this price support scheme operations in states or districts. So the procurement expenditure and losses due to procurement will be borne by the central government as per the norms. Next important component of PM ASHA is price deficiency payment scheme. So under this price deficiency payment scheme, it is proposed to cover all oilseeds for which MSP is notified. So in this, direct payment of the difference between the MSP and the selling or modal price will be made to the pre-registered farmers. That is, all payments will be done directly into registered bank account of the farmer, and this scheme does not involve any physical procurement. So this is the difference. It does not involve any physical procurement of crops, as farmers are paid the difference between the MSP price and the sale or modal price on disposal in notified market. So the support of central government for PDPS will be given as per the norms, and it has been framed on the lines of the Madhya Pradesh government's Bhavantar Bhugtan Yojana to protect oilseed farmers. Next important component is pilot of private procurement and stocklist schemes. So it has been decided that for oilseeds, state have the option to roll out private procurement stocklist scheme. So it can be done on pilot basis in select districts or APMCs involving the participation of private stockists. So the pilot district or selected APMC will cover one or more crop of oilseeds for which MSP is notified. And next you have to note this private procurement and stockist scheme, it also involves physical procurement of the notified commodity similar to price support scheme. So one important difference is price deficiency payment scheme, it does not involve any physical procurement, whereas PPPS and PSS, they both involve physical procurement of the commodity. So next important topic is quant funds. So we know that automation is taking over many highly paid jobs around the world, and this money management may be no exception. So one illustration of this phenomena is this particular quant funds. So let's see what is this quant fund. So a quant fund is one in which the investment decision or the stock selection is done according to predetermined rules based on statistical or mathematical model, or in simple we can remember that based on some algorithm. So unlike active funds where a fund manager chooses his investments and the timing of entry and exit, these quant funds, they rely on an automated program to make these decisions. But a quant fund manager may not be entirely hands off like an index fund manager, so he often designs and monitors. So quant fund manager often designs and monitors the model that throws up the portfolio choices. So examples of quant fund in India or DSP mutual fund, Reliance quant fund, and apart from mutual funds, hedge fund managers also use this quantitative models. So next important topic is ways and means advance. So this ways and means advance is a facility for both the center and states to borrow from the RBI in order to enable it to meet temporary mismatches between the revenue and expenditure. So section 17 subclause 5 of RBI Act 1934, it authorizes the central bank to lend to the center and state governments. So under this ways and means advance, the government has to pay an interest rate equal to the repo rate, and the tenure is not more than 3 months. And the limits for this WMA, they are mutually decided by the RBI and Government of India. So there are two types of ways and means advance. One is normal and one is special. So normal ways and means advance is clean advances. So a state gets normal WMA only after it exhausts the limit of its special drawing facility. So the number of loans under this normal ways and means advance is based on a 3-year average of actual revenue and capital expenditure of the state. Whereas under special ways and means advance or special drawing facility is provided against the collateral of the government securities held by the state. So the interest rate for this special drawing facility is 1 percentage point less than the repo rate. Next important topic is National Mineral Policy 2019. So this new policy replaced the National Mineral Policy 2008, and Ministry of Mines, it had constituted a committee in 2017 under the chairmanship of Dr. K. Rajeshwar Rao. So you can remember Dr. K. Rajeshwar Rao. So to review the earlier National Mineral Policy 2008, and based on his recommendation and feedback, National Mineral Policy 2019 was launched. So this National Mineral Policy 2019, it is aimed to have more effective, meaningful and implementable policy that brings in more transparency, better regulation and enforcement, and there are some salient features, please go through it. Next important topic is Asiatic Golden Cat. So this Asiatic Golden Cat was in news because recently Indian scientists, they have discovered 6 color morphs of the golden cat in Dibang Valley of Arunachal Pradesh. See why this particular news is important, because no other place on earth has so many colors of wild cats of the same species. So for now this Dibang Valley, it hosts the world's most diverse range of color morphs of a wild cat species ever reported in one site. So Asiatic Golden Cat, it is IUCN near threatened and habitat is usually northeastern India, and it ranges from Nepal till Indonesia. So some part of South Asia and some part of Southeast Asia, and they are found at different habitats at different elevation. So they are found from wet tropical lowland forests to alpine scrubs. So next we have to know about Dibang River. So Dibang River, it is a tributary of Brahmaputra, and it originates and flows through the Mishmi Hills and northeast India from the state of Arunachal Pradesh. Next you should know about color morphs. So color morphs are thought to arise from random genetic mutation, and they take hold in the population through natural selection. However, in this particular region, that is Dibang Valley of Arunachal Pradesh, the scientists suspect that the phenomenon is driven by competition. So here this particular Asiatic gold cats, they have to compete with other big cats such as tigers and clouded leopards. So for them, being melanistic in the misty mountains, it helps to hunt and escape from the predators. So let's see about polymorphism or alternative phenotypes. So polymorphism is something like occurrence of two or more clearly different morphs or different forms in the population of a same species. It is also referred to as the alternative phenotype. So polymorphism is common in nature. It is related to biodiversity, genetic variation and adaptation. And according to the theory of evolution, polymorphism results from evolutionary process. So it is heritable and is modified by natural selection. And next is sexual dimorphism. So it refers to various prominent differences in the physical characteristics of male and females of the same species. It can include size, colors, shape, cognitive abilities and various other distinct characteristics. So next topic is Golden Langur breeding project and regarding Golden Langur. So Golden Langur conservation breeding program was undertaken at the Assam State Zoo in Guwahati. So the project, which was aimed to create an isolated and undisturbed site within the zoo to provide natural habitat for the primates with a golden coat endemic to this particular Assam. So it is believed to be a successful project. So you have to remember Golden Langur is endemic to Assam and some part of Bhutan. So recently a pair of Golden Langurs, they have given birth to female infant. And this Golden Langurs, their IUCN status is currently endangered. And Chakrashila Wildlife Sanctuary in Assam is India's first wildlife sanctuary with Golden Langur as the primary species. So next important topic is conservation efforts to revive Ghadial population. So 5 Ghadials were bred at the Nandankanan Zoological Park in Odisha and they were released into the Satkosia Gorge of Mahanadi. So this Satkosia Gorge of Mahanadi is the southernmost limit of Ghadial's home range in India. So Odisha is the only state in India having all 3 species of crocodile, that is Ghadial, Magar and saltwater crocodile. And important things what you have to know is this Ghadials are critically endangered species of crocodile. And it is native to sandy freshwater river banks in the plains of the northern part of the Indian subcontinent. And the Ghadial is listed on CITES Appendix 1 and also Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. And also during discussing 10 new Ramsar sites, I told that Bias Conservation Reserve, it is site for the Ghadial reintroduction program. And this Bias Conservation Reserve also hosts the only known population of Indus River dolphins in India. So the earlier known depictions of Ghadials date back to Indus Valley civilization. So the seals and tablets, they show Ghadials with fish in their mouth and also surrounded by fish. And you have to know, in India, Ghadial population are present in Ramganga River in Corbett National Park, Girva River in Keternia Ghat Wildlife Sanctuary in UP, Gandaki River, which is in west of Valmiki Tiger Reserve and adjacent to the Sohagi Barwa Sanctuary, and Chambal River in National Chambal Sanctuary, Ganges in Hastinapur Wildlife Sanctuary. So these are the 20 important topics. So let's meet with more sessions and try to complete this series as soon as possible. Thank you.